Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of CropLife Retail Week. I'm Eric Sfiligoy, editor of CropLife and CropLife Iron, here with a special guest this edition, and that would be Jim DeLisi from Fanwood Chemical. Jim, welcome to the program.
Nice to be with you, Eric. It's been an interesting couple of months.
Yes, it has, and we're going to review that a little bit. But before we do, if you could, for our listeners, our viewers who might not know who you are, can you give us a little background on yourself and basically what you do here in the great agricultural marketplace?
Sure. Uh, I've been involved in chemical industry for about almost 50 years. Been heavily involved in trade and trade affairs on behalf of the chemical industry. I'm currently chairman of ITAC3, the Industry Trade Advisory Committee for Chemicals, Pharmaceuticals, Health Science, Products, and Services. I'm also on the ABG Advisory Board. I'm involved with the CPDA Trade Committee. So I've been heavily involved in a lot of these things for a long time. Our business involves the tracing of imports and exports of agrochemicals in the United States and a few other countries. So we're deeply involved in the trade landscape, both from a trade policy point of view and a practical point of view on what's actually happening on the ground.
Okay, and again, you mentioned ABG, and for those who may not know, that's Agribusiness Global, which is a sister publication to CropLife. And of course, I know Agribusiness Global holds an annual trade summit each year in the summertime, and usually, if I'm not wrong, you're a regular speaker on that at that event, correct?
Yes, I did speak at the last, I suspect, as many as 10 years on trade issues, current trade issues impacting the agrochemical industry. That conference is wonderful, and it's a place where everybody meets, and so, it's been an important aspect for us.
Very good. Well, the reason I brought you on this edition of Crop Life Retail Week, of course, I wanted to talk a little bit about tariffs. That's kind of been in the news lately. But before we dive into the current state of things, the tariff situation, where here in 2025, um, basically it's been going on for most of the year. What has been the impact on our friends in the agricultural community?
It's been, from the input side, and the output side, it's been significant because from the output side, there have been significant tariffs, uh, on US exports to China specifically, that have had a significant impact on the, ability of farmers to prosper. This recent arrangement that Mr. Trump did with China has allowed for the first exports of soybeans, I believe, for the entire year. There's 12 million metric tons that should move between now and the end of the year, which is less than half of what would be normal. So that from a farmer point of view, it's been kind of painful as the export markets have, especially China, have been reduced. On the input side, it's had a significant price of impact on the value of crop inputs. Crop protection chemicals uh, have varied in value because of these tariffs, and also uh, the agronomist really has been key for the last for this crop year, and going into next year will be even more important because many of the active ingredients are only available from China or India or other overseas sources. And with the if the tariff is 10%, 15%, 20%, it probably does not impact the actual value per acre, which is really what farmers need to calculate. If you want to kill a bug, it's how much does it cost per acre to do it, and you're going to pick the one that's the best, regardless of what you used last year. But with tariffs in the 60% range, those calculations get to be more vital. So agronomists have been an important factor in making sure that things are done in the most economic way possible, more than they have in the past.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I know tariffs is a big topic conversation. I know I just finished our Crop Life 100 report for our December edition of the magazine, and I know when I asked the open-ended question at the end of the survey, what the biggest hurdles were for profitability in moving into 2026. I was kind of surprised. Tariffs finished second on that list at 12%, according to the respondents. They were worried that was going to negatively impact their profitability possibilities moving in the next season. But part of the other reason I wanted to have you on this week, of course, on Wednesday, November 5th, there were some oral arguments before the U.S. Supreme Court regarding the whole tariff issue. So, if you could set up a little bit, Jim, about how we got to the Supreme Court, and then what basically kind of what happened on the fifth, in terms of what was sort of what were the takeaways from that or the oral argument session.
Well, I listened to a lot of the Supreme Court arguments. I didn't listen to the full 2.5 hours, but I listened to a lot of it, and it was clear, um, that the justices were skeptical about the the statute that the president used to impose these tariffs. Frankly, the Chinese, could have made their lives a little simpler if they had not taken the actions they did on rare earth metals about 2 weeks ago, when China imposed significant export restrictions on rare earth metals, and the products that contain them, and in such a way that they were gonna be able to control them worldwide, so that if somebody in the United States bought a, rare earth metals from China, produced something from it, and then wanted to export that from the United States, the Chinese were gonna have some control over that. And President Trump responded with 100%, with a threat of 100% tariffs to stop
Mm,
that from happening.
right.
Um, that action showed that the president might need some of these powers, whereby if that had not happened, um, some of what the president has done has been somewhat arbitrary. Specifically, if you look at the reciprocal tariffs on Brazil, uh, the headline says they're 50%. The headline is not exactly correct. The reciprocal tariff is 10%. The Bolsonaro tariff is 40%. There is no precedent for putting a tariff on a country for an internal court argument. And believe me, I'm not commenting in any way, shape, or form about is Bolsonaro right or wrong. I'm just talking about the tariff aspect of it. And then a few weeks ago, you saw President Trump put an extra 10% tariff on Canada because they ran an advertisement. And again, not commenting on whether the advertisement was right, wrong, or indifferent. Um, it just was not a likely a reasonable use of the authority. So what the Supreme Court did yesterday is they had a 2.5 hour argument trying to decide if the so-called IEPA law is does permit the president to put tariffs in place as he desires. And some of the tariffs are really hard to understand. I mean, Switzerland right now has a 39% reciprocal tariff. And you may think, well, who cares? Well, a lot of S metallochlor in agriculture, who cares? Well, a lot of S metallochlor comes from Switzerland. And there are a variety of other specialty ag chemical inputs that are still made in Switzerland, and there's some formulated products that come out of Switzerland. Um, the uh, to tariff on formulated products coming out of Europe is 15% because they don't so-called stack the tariff. So it's just the 15%, whereas in other countries they're stacked. And so well, the reciprocal for Korea is 15%. The total gets to be 21.5 for aromatic products. So um, it's going to be very interesting to see what the Supreme Court does. There was legitimate arguments on both sides from everything that I could read because I'm not an attorney, nor am I a Supreme Court expert. So you have to be really careful what you take away from these oral arguments. I heard on the radio on the way up, the betting pools right now are saying that the chance of the president winning this is less than 27%. So I don't know if you believe in the betting markets. They're usually pretty good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't bet on sports or anything like that. It just is way over my head when you go with all these scenarios, what ifs, et cetera, and so on. So
I don't either, but but most of the pundits are saying it's unlikely that the president will prevail on the IEEPA tariffs. But it's important to note that the 301 tariffs that he put in place in 2018 are not impacted by this,
Okay.
nor are the 232s, which for the ag chemicals, it's steel, aluminum, but it's also copper salts now. So
Mhm.
that which are important to the agrochemical business. So um, at this point, it looks like you'd have to believe that there's a reasonably good chance that mid-December, late December, the Supreme Court will rule against the tariffs. Frankly, my presentation in August at the ABG summit, my opinion has been that the president will lose. So it's going to be fun to see how he works that out. In the case of China, since he's already got the 301 tariffs in place, he could probably adjust those to do whatever he wants. In the case of India, he'd have to start a 301 process or something similar. And the thing that's going to really be chaotic, and it was reflected by Judge Barrett yesterday, is if the Supreme Court rules against, it is highly likely there will have to be refunds. There is another case behind this that does make it a class action suit and require a refund. So it is if his if his actions are proved to be unconstitutional, refunds will be the order of the day, and how that's done will be fascinating to watch because it's billions and billions and billions of dollars will have to go back into the systems.
Yeah, you're right, that'll make for a very interesting, chaotic and again, when you're looking at the market in general, I mean, uncertainty has sort of been the buzzword for the entire year, no matter what business or part of the global economy you're looking at. So yeah, it would not help. But just to be devil's advocate, Jim, if he prevails, what then happens?
He will continue to put these tariffs in place. The administration has been trying to um, not totally decouple from China, but to make us less dependent on China. But what you've got right now is that the total tariff on a formulated agrochemical coming in from China and aromatic is 51.5%. The total tariff right now from India is 56.5. So you've got a disincentive to do business with India. And there are substantial products where, if you take Dicamba, for instance, the total tariff coming out of China is 34%. The total tariff coming out of India right now is 56.5%. And there are product after product after product where there are disincentives now from decoupling from China. The reverse side of that, the other thing that's beginning to happen is companies are looking at our free trade partners where there are chemical reaction rules in place. And very recently, there's significant quantities of glyphosate and now dicamba coming out of Guatemala. There has been significant quantities of products coming out of Colombia for many years. I'm aware of a couple of companies that are trying to figure out if they can do some relatively simple chemical reactions to make materials the product of Canada and then come in free trade agreement. There's been some stuff coming in from Mexico where chemical reactions are occurring south of the border, and it's coming in duty free under USMCA. So that um, on the good side, what the tariffs are doing is good old American ingenuity is kicking in to try to find some workarounds. So if the president wins, there will be more of the workarounds will come into place. Of course, in this highly regulated industry, done very, very carefully to make sure that nobody runs afoul of the EPA, and that nothing gets put into the systems that is other than safe for use. So it's American ingenuity will get around some of it, but not all of it. And it would be fascinating to see how the president reacts if he wins. If he loses, it will also be fascinating to see how he reacts because President Trump ran on on a platform of imposing tariffs, and so if he loses, there are other ways for him to do it. None of them are as easy um, for him on an administrative basis to move the numbers up and down and sideways and add countries as what he has used with IEPA that I know of. It may be out there, but I don't know of them.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, Jim, I certainly appreciate you spelling this all out for our viewers. And as you said, we'll probably get a decision here in about a month, mid-December or so. And after we know what's going, if it's been rejected or accepted at the Supreme Court level, we'll probably have you back on to discuss what happens at that point. But in the meantime, certainly thank you very much for your time today.
Delighted to do it, Eric. Have a great day and enjoy the conference.
Thank you. And viewers, I hope you enjoyed this special edition of Crop Life Retail Week. On behalf of myself and everyone in the Crop Life Media Group, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. If you have questions or comments about today's episode of Retail Week, contact us by email or Twitter, or type your message in the comments section below. Your feedback is important to us. We will try our best to address your thoughts in next week's episode, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube